Welcome back to the Pavilion Podcast, and today we will be discussing what is discipleship.
Welcome to the Pavilion, a safe place to ask tough questions. Let's open our hearts, our minds, and most importantly, our Bibles, as we discuss challenges facing the church today, questions from seekers and doubters, puzzling passages, current trends, and more.
The first thing we need to do is to lay out what a disciple is. A disciple is a student of someone, put in literal terms. To kind of codify it, it would be like we would look at somebody like a sports coach, like a Bill Belichick or a Coach K. Somebody could be a disciple of them. That would mean that they would emulate them, their coaching styles, the way that they handle themselves in the games, their philosophies, and that would be somebody that would be a disciple of, like, in just the literal sense of sports coach. So after we laid that groundwork, what does it mean to disciple someone? We understand who a disciple is, but what does it mean to disciple someone? First, we got to realize that it's not a passive activity. We must be intentional in our actions and in our words. And for our specific discussion, we are obviously talking about what makes one a disciple of Christ, and how we will go about the discipleship process of bringing someone into that. And to make a disciple, we must start out by sharing the gospel. And once we share the gospel and we establish a connection with a person of peace, as I heard in a lecture the other day at school, which would be a person who is open and receptive to the gospel, we must then model ourselves after Christ. And in doing so, we will teach people about Jesus through our actions, through our words, and we will teach them to how we emulate Him. They will then, in turn, begin to emulate Him as well. And this all must take place in the context of a personal relationship. It can't be just one of them hands-off things. It has to be, like I said before, very intentional, and it has to be growth-focused. We will see that church alone cannot affect this. Is often not enough to affect kingdom growth. And this is not saying that church is not important, because it is very important. But the personal and community and the connections that we have with one another, that's where the growth and the discipleship, it's really where the rubber meets the road in this terms. And as we approach and continue on in our discipleship programs with people, after we've made a connection with the person of peace, then we can, then as a mentor, when we enter this relationship, we are intentionally shaping our disciple in their understanding, their attitudes, and their behaviors. So this is more than just like I said, a cursory thing where we just talk every once in a while, see each other on Sundays, and then go our way. But this is a literal doing life together, essentially, where we're outside of church, even we meet for lunches. And one of the biggest and best ways to enact a discipleship program would be through small groups. And these small groups we often term like a worshiping group, we need to establish these groups because they're more apt. People are more apt to apply and participate in these small groups than they would in a church setting. They're more apt to ask questions. They're more apt to be engaged. When we disciple within the context of like these personal relationships, when we're in these small groups, we can have that person of peace, like I referred to earlier, and that would be the person who's open and receptive. Well, then after we develop a strong relationship with this person, we can begin these relationships. We can take this relationship and pour into these people. And then these people, in turn, once they become believers, and once they join, and once they accept the truth of Jesus' sacrifice and the relationship with Him, then they can, in turn, they have family and friends and colleagues and neighbors that they can then reach out to, and then they can start discipling. So it all boils back, and if this is kind of it's one of the main reasons why we see that the early church was so successful, because this is the model they followed. It started out with just a relational thing, with being together, with staying constantly in the disciples' teachings, with fellowship, of breaking of bread, and prayers, and just helping others when they saw somebody that was suffering, or just developing and entering into a relationship where they cared for one another strongly. This is the key, and it's also one of the reasons why we see such a strong growth in like the churches in China, where there's such a massive persecution. It's because they've been forced into kind of this model where they just meet in these small groups to avoid detection and avoid that persecution. And like I said before, the main focus of these things must be to share the gospel and to teach and to be engaged in others' lives. If we do this right here, as A.W. Tozer put it, only a disciple can make a disciple. And as I heard it put in the same class that I referenced earlier, that this is the multiplier effect. And it is one of the highest and most best proven ways for kingdom growth. And it's something that we truly apply it to ourselves. When you have the community and mentorship, we see that they aren't the only important aspect of this program. And we need to have the movement and the action of the Spirit, because that's central in everything we do. So that's why prayer is so important, like I referenced before. So if we got to keep those things in focus, then we will see successful kingdom growth. And that's the key of one of the things that we're looking for.